A beautiful baby boy was born early and had an extensive stay in a neonatal intensive care unit, or a NICU. When his parents were finally able to bring their little one home, they were relieved, but also overwhelmed by the idea of having to care for their child without highly skilled medical staff nearby. Because you see, while he had no diagnosed condition, he'd spent so much time in the NICU that he wasn't able to build a resilience or tolerance for the outside world and all that it demands. Essential developmental milestones, like laying on his tummy for extended periods of time to build his muscular strength and stability, reaching for a nearby pacifier or bringing his hand to his mouth to soothe himself, studying a colorful mobile overhead, noticing its patterns and shapes, or even just alerting without fear to sounds like the doorbell ringing or the dog barking. These are all critical skills that build, one on top of the other, into lifelong capabilities, facets of a home and family life. So he was home, but he was crying a lot, and he wasn't trying to roll over or help sit up or hold his bottle, and he also wasn't responding consistently to important things like his mother's voice. His parents knew something wasn't quite right, so they asked their pediatrician for help, and help came. It came in the form of an early interventionist, coming to their home once a week to work with them on simple but consistent strategies that help support their child and his development. She sat with them on the floor every week, and she watched as they interacted together as a family. She listened as they shared their worries, their fears, and what they wanted most for their little one. She helped them think about what small, actionable steps they could take, looking to things like developmental milestones, their genetic and health history, and their nearby resources. She asked them specifically about their daily routine, like a detective, pinpointing those small moments throughout their day in which a new habit could be built or expanded to weave in evidence-based strategies that would help their child practice things like rolling over to reach a highly preferred toy, which could then be shaped into pulling his knees under his hips, rocking forward, and reaching for that same toy, which would eventually turn into him crawling freely throughout the room to reach any toy he liked. One skill leading right into the next one, then the next one, and then the next one, but not without some intentional practice. You see, the family knew where they wanted to go, but they didn't know how to get there. So the early interventionist laid out a path forward for them based on their own priorities. Then she overlaid it with their daily life to ensure that it fit. She helped build their confidence and competence by asking them about their own extended family support and nearby resources, showing them at every single visit that while they have opportunities throughout their day to help their child develop, they also had the skills inherent within themselves to parent a child with a developmental disability. Now, what you just heard is a common story of family resilience and brain building through early intervention services. And a key component of this work is bolstered through community engagement. Now, why does this matter so much to me? To the extent that I would craft and memorize a 17-minute speech and then stand on a stage and deliver that speech to about 100 of you folks watching from this audience. And then, of course, there's all those lovely people listening and watching from that live feed that I can't really think about right now. But I am a speech-language pathologist, and I believe in the power of community connection. And that starts with family connection, which is often strengthened through challenges. So today I want to talk to you specifically about community resilience and early intervention services for young children with developmental disabilities right here on our Mississippi Gulf Coast. Now, what is early intervention have to do with the blue economy, and why should you listen to me talk about it? Well, I don't love your tone. These are fair questions. So at the Children's Center, I lead a pediatric team of experts that work collaboratively with families to help support young children with disabilities ages birth to 5. They do this by providing services here in our campus classrooms. And they also travel all over Southeast Mississippi to support families where they are, where brains need building, where families need a detective. So today I'd like to answer 3 questions for you. First, what is early intervention exactly? Second, what are our state and our region's needs, and how is the Children's Center at Southern Miss taking the lead to help address those needs? And lastly, why is all of this important for the Blue economy? Okay, let's break this down. What is early intervention? Well, in a nutshell, it's special education and therapy for infants and toddlers with developmental delays. It can include things like speech-language therapy, physical therapy, or social work support for families, just to name a few. When done well, early intervention is incredibly effective at reducing the need for costly special education when a child reaches school age. In fact, it's conservatively estimated that Mississippi could save approximately $3.5 million a year if children were to enroll in services before age 3. Now, how does it work? Well, we, the early interventionist, or the detective, work with the brain's architecture to build strong neural connections that form into lasting, lifelong skills. Meaning, we use what's motivating and meaningful to the child and family to help work on big skills, like walking and communicating. 90% of a little one's brain is developed by age 5, with the majority of this happening before age 3. This means that neuroplasticity, or the brain's capacity for change, is at its highest during those early critical years. So for those of us in the business of building brains, we're fighting against a clock. Or perhaps, more appropriately, we're using the clock to our advantage, and we're intervening when it matters most. The historic way of viewing disability is that it should be treated by an expert by isolating deficits and then working intensively to correct those deficits. You see a specialist to find out what's wrong and how to fix it, right? So the little boy would see a speech therapist in a clinic, for instance, and she would work on building his language skills by maybe teaching him to sign cookie to request a cookie. Then the expectation would be that he sign cookie please to get that same cookie. And then eventually, the goal would be that he just say cookie please. After each and every session, that therapist would walk the little boy back to the lobby where his parents are waiting, and there she would provide strategies for them to work on at home. Homework, so to speak. Now, this can be an effective model of intervention, but when we're working from a tight window with brain building, remember the birth to 3 time frame, and there's more that needs to be addressed beyond language delays alone, like with that little boy from our story earlier with a complex health history. That early interventionist must be strategic and thoughtful with her limited time. She must be willing to release the responsibility of the work from herself, the deficit expert, back to the family, the individual child expert. And in doing this, she empowers them to take ownership of the plan and all the wins as their child continues to grow and develop, keeping them connected and thriving within their own community. This is all important for the success of the Blue economy in this region. You may not be thinking about the Blue economy in this way, but the skill building that we do with young children and families helps support our current and future workforce. Locally, it's estimated that there are about 600 babies in the 6 coastal counties of Mississippi needing early intervention services. But Mississippi, as a state, ranks first in premature births and first in low birth weights. Both of those are high indicators for developmental delays and a need for early intervention services. So while the need for services is estimated to be around 600 babies in this area, that's strictly based on national averages. Based on our state's specific statistics, it would be more accurate to estimate that over 1,400 babies are needing early intervention services in this region alone. That's right, more than double. But with high need comes high opportunity. This region can be a beacon for change in early intervention, and the Blue economy would reap the benefits. So what is a university-based program's role in supporting this region's needs? Well, at the Children's Center, we are leveraging our 50-year-old legacy as a high-quality, evidence-based program that supports young children with disabilities and their families at no cost to them. We're building a model, a beacon of hope, for families and community members all over our state. In fact, right outside this very room, you've seen the collective efforts of community, state, federal, and university leaders who, together with donors across the state and further, have agreed to invest in the Mississippi Gulf Coast. They've prioritized brain building when it matters most because they know the remarkable impact that can have on a region's success. So, in looking to early intervention as a tool to support the blue economy, we must move away from the old medical model of intervention and instead focus on the meaningful exchanges between the child and the individuals who have the most significant impact on that child in the location in which that child must be able to participate. This is how we build community-based support systems. In fact, in my example of that little boy who was in the clinic with a speech therapist while working on requesting cookies, as it turns out, that family doesn't eat cookies. Yeah, that's right. Crazy, huh? Believe it or not, some families prefer other snacks. So while that little boy mastered a new vocabulary word in the clinic with his therapist, that skill has no use in his home. But more importantly, those parents are no closer to understanding why it's important to work together to build opportunities for their child to increase his skills in his home with the people he knows. So, have you heard of the Mississippi Miracle? No, it's not that we're all finally wearing shoes. The miracle, rather, is that our state's academic scores are steadily ticking up, moving us from the bottom in the nation to 9th in important areas like reading. Guess where all that started? Preschool services. That's right, with 3 and 4-year-olds. So, our state over 10 years ago invested in high-quality preschool for families to access at affordable rates to no cost at all. We leveled the playing field and we prioritized the importance of enrolling in school before age 5. Now, imagine if we started that work even earlier. Remember when that little brain is building those strong neural pathways before age 3. What would our academic scores look like if we rolled up our sleeves and got to work when toddlers were showing signs of delay at age 2? What would the health of our children look like if we invested in early intervention and reduced the need for costly specialized services down the road? Would more families be able to work instead of leaving our dwindling workforce to help care for their child, taking him to multiple therapy appointments, or just be available for those behavior calls from the school? Would more businesses be looking at the Mississippi Gulf Coast as a viable option for future plants, branches, or even headquarters because of our innovative, inclusive approach to early child care programming? Empowering early intervention is empowering the blue economy. Now, hopefully you're feeling inspired and thinking, how can I help? I like your tone. Thank you for asking. The next time you encounter a family with a little one with a disability and they're sharing feelings of frustration and fear, tell them about comprehensive early intervention that can be provided to them at no cost. Help them find their detective. Pay attention to the positive momentum in our state, and specifically in this region. Get involved. Ask those of us in the business of brain building, what do you need to be able to help more families, serve more babies? See the face of a nonprofit community leader light up with that question. Why? Because it means you get it. You get the importance of helping families and children of all abilities reach their highest potential. For them, for their family, but really for all of us. Most importantly, you believe in the capacity of your Mississippi neighbors and our children. Children like that beautiful little boy who, because his detective came to his home and helped his family work on strategies that were meaningful to them, he's flourishing. They're flourishing. But not only are they flourishing, but they're invested in the success of their neighbors. Thank you.